Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today we are going to be starting a Brave build that corresponds with the last video I put out, which was a Brave Townie video of the witch from the movie. So this is her cottage, but this is actually going to be a little bit of a different type of lot. I've never really done one exactly like this before. It is not a residential, and there's quite a bit of explaining to do as far as all of the things that are going into this lot and all of the ways that it's going to function. So I'm going to be explaining that in the video, but essentially I had so much footage I basically had to cut this into two parts. So today is going to be the first half, and then later in the week I have the second half that I'm going to put out. And then we have some more Brave content coming down the pipeline. So like I said, this is actually not a residential, and I know a lot of you are going to be like, well, why did you make a house or a cottage that is not marked as a residential? And there were a couple of reasons for it. So first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that the witch from Brave was a townie for Henford on Bagley. This was something that was decided by me and my patrons, and it was for a very specific reason, that being that there are some special NPC traits that you can give to people in Henford on Bagley. One of them is the mare trait, but one of the things that you can't do if a sim has that trait is they cannot be in a playable household. It actually destroys the household and can break your game and do all sorts of nonsense. So if you want to apply one of those NPC traits from this world to a character, it has to be a townie. So we were trying to figure out who was going to fill some of those roles, and we decided that the witch from Brave was going to fill one of those. So she had to be a townie, but we did have her house. It is one of the very few locations from Brave that they show. They really only show a couple. They have this one, they have the castle, we have the stones, the ring of stones, and then we have the ancient kingdom, the ruins from the later part of the movie. So we don't have too many references to Brave or things that I could actually build, and it seems like a little bit of a waste if we don't actually build her home. So the idea was presented to create her home as a community lot. And the really interesting thing about community lots is that they obviously are the only lots in The Sims that change depending on how your Sims vote for them in the system. So something I've never really tried before is the idea of, instead of really making a lot like a community lot, because we do have some other ones in the save file. For example, we have Belle's Village. That is a community lot. But no matter how your Sims vote on Belle's Village, it'll generally look the same. The only thing that's going to be different about it is that it will do whatever the lot is supposed to do in the form it gets voted for, if that makes sense. So if your Sims vote for the marketplace, it'll have a little bit more of a marketplace vibe, and so on. But something that we haven't really experimented too much with is the idea of having the lot actually change and transform into something completely different. And that really goes hand in hand with this lot specifically, because in the movie it's shown in many different forms. It's shown as the stone rings, it's shown as an abandoned empty witch's cottage, it's shown as being her house, and it's also shown as being a sort of a store with woodworking carvings and things in it. So if any lot was going to transform in the game, this is a really great opportunity to have something that can do that. So depending on how your Sims vote for the system in the game, this lot will actually change to completely different forms. The first form that we are working on currently, the one that I started building, is the marketplace, because I knew very easy we would pick the marketplace to be the woodworking store, where in the very first scene I think that she interacts with this cottage, she stumbles upon it and she thinks it's a store with a little old lady that is selling lots of wood carvings. So we will have that be the marketplace in this instance, almost kind of like a store. And so everything inside is going to be cluttered with lots of wood pieces and carved things. And luckily we do have quite a bit of that stuff in debug, so it was easy to sort of decorate the interior to match a lot of what is shown in the movie. And then the other forms that I decided to create are a little bit more, they require a little bit more explanation, I think. So the community garden is going to be the ring of stones. I think that that makes a lot of sense because the community garden doesn't really require a ton of items. You basically just have to have a couple of areas for your Sims to sort of plant things. And so we could do the stones, we can do the ring, and we can have it be very garden-y, organic, and then just have a couple of additional places where Sims would be able to easily plant. The other one is the Makerspace. So this one was a little bit of a challenge. I went back and forth on which version of this lot we would do for the Makerspace. And I know not everybody's going to love my choice, but ultimately I decided that it was going to be the abandoned version of this cottage. So this is the version that Merida stumbles back upon this later. When she ends up back at this cottage, she's looking for the witch and she opens the door and there's basically nothing inside. And I decided that we would have it be sort of like an abandoned version of this very same building with some of the things that are required as the Makerspace needs inside, but sort of like hidden, destroyed, dirty, and very poorly lit. And that is actually going to be the second half of today's video in today's speed build. And then the last one is just the general community lot, which doesn't really require much of anything, but that is going to be her actual home. So at one point, the witch opens the door and you can see that it is transformed into like a proper witch's house. So that is going to be the base community space version of it. And then, like I said, we'll have the ring of stones for the garden. We'll have the woodworker's shop for the marketplace, and then the abandoned version of the cottage as the makerspace. So today's speed build is obviously the exterior of the build, which is going to serve for most of the versions of the lot, with the exception of the ring of stones. And it is going to also be the woodworker's space, the little marketplace, and the makerspace, which is the abandoned version of the lot. I think this will make a lot more sense later on in the video as we sort of go through and decorate, and I might possibly put out a little bit of a tour video. I'm not quite sure if it's necessary because essentially we still have 3 of the same exteriors here, but let me know if that's something that you would like to see. I hope that this all makes sense, what we're trying to do here. And I have found this is working really well. I wasn't quite sure about making a super crazy cluttered lot for these transforming type of lots where you can vote and see how the game would react to essentially building 4 different builds on the same lot and having all of the files and things there to have the game switch it between all of the versions. I don't know why, but I just feel like it's a little advanced for The Sims sometimes. It's so unique. It's kind of unlike anything that we have in the game. So I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work the way that I wanted it to, but it all seems to be working really fine. And it's exciting because that means that we can use this idea again in the future with different things. But I think specifically with Brave, it makes a lot of sense because it's more like it transforms and disappears depending on what you have voted for. But that's very in line with how the movie actually went, where the space kind of changes and disappears, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, and the Ring of Stones isn't always there, and that sort of thing. So it sort of plays into the magic of Brave as well, and it's obviously a very, very unique lot. And really, I've been focusing a lot on trying to make Henford-on-Bagley feel like a very community-oriented world, and I think obviously that makes a lot of sense with all the things that we have going on in the world and the theming of it. So making sure that a community space is available in this world, I feel like, is kind of important. And of course, we will still do the castle. I don't know if I've mentioned that in a previous video. I've been off in London for a few weeks. That is why I wasn't posting basically the last week of December. I was in London with my boyfriend for all of Christmas and I completely ran out of content to post. So half of this was actually done before I went to London, and then immediately when I came back, I was there for 2.5 weeks, and by the time I came back I was so excited and ready to work on the save, which is always a really great thing because it means I took some proper time off. I wasn't able to touch the game at all while I was there. Despite my efforts, I did asked my boyfriend if I could maybe install my game and all of my packs on his computer and see if maybe I could work from there, but he wasn't sure that his computer was going to be able to do that. So I didn't get to work on my save at all, which is kind of a good thing. It gives me a fresh start and a fresh feel when I came back to be able to work on things, and I was so excited to finally get back into building, and I could really feel it when I was building, which is a great thing. That's usually when I create some of my best stuff. And I ended up working, basically, I came home and I just banged out the Brave content. I was really, really excited to do it. I actually ended up staying home a lot too. I was supposed to go back to work, but I came home and almost immediately got COVID. So good thing, not so good thing. Obviously, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm doing great. No worries there. But it did mean that I got to stay home for a week and a half or so and do nothing but work on the save. Because at that point, by the time I knew I had it, I basically was feeling well enough to work. So I stayed home and did lots of videos, which means we have a lot of stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks, I basically pre-planned and did and created videos for all of February. So it's almost all ready to go, and it should be out kind of coming along the weeks in February. I'm really excited for that. We're going to be finishing Hemford on Bagley very soon here. We have very, very little things left to do here. A couple of townies, a castle or two, which we know is going to take quite a bit of time, but not a ton of stuff compared to where we started in this world. And then we're going to move on to the next world, which my patrons do get to vote for the next world. So I can't announce what that's going to be. I'm going to probably start posting to have my patrons do a little bit of voting coming up in the next week or two here and see what they want. I have a feeling I know where we're going to go and what we're going to be doing, but it is kind of completely up to them at this point, and I'm open to whatever, so I'm going to let them decide and we'll see what happens from there, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when I actually know. So for the interior here, we did have some reference from the movie where Merida's inside here, so that's great. I had a little bit, depending on the angle, depending on the corner. I did have some reference from the outside, so I tried to do my best, obviously, to match that up. The interior, obviously, it's one of those cases. It doesn't really match up as much as it would. And I was originally trying to combine making this space not only the woodworker shop, but her actual home, not thinking that eventually I would create her home in a different version. So you can see that I had started creating a bedroom in the back space behind this little front entryway area. That's going to completely go away. And basically the entire shop is going to get turned into a woodworker shop. And the point of it being that not necessarily because this is the marketplace version of this lot, that you would come here and get traditional marketplace things. So for Belle's Village, if that is a marketplace, it has marketplace stalls. So you can go there and get fruit and vegetables, gardening supplies, things that you would actually think to find in a marketplace. This is more so a woodworker's shop. So we have woodworking tables in here. There is almost always, depending on which version of the lot is available, there is almost always a woodworking table available, which is nice for Sims 2 and for players to know, like, I can go there and use a public woodworking table in this space. But more so than anything, I was just really trying to replicate the movie, and she has lots of little carvings around. She has tons of things hanging from the ceiling and the walls, and lots of cabinetry that's like sort of built in. So I spent a really long time scrolling through all of the different catalogs in The Sims, trying to find any wood pieces, anything in debug, things that I could hang from the wall, things that I could sort of like piece cabinets together and make it look like it's really built into the stone. And so we can get that more cluttered, closed in, confined, and a little bit messy sort of feel. You'll see me start to scatter some little wood pieces on the floor, and that goes completely overboard at the end, to a point where, of course, I'm going to have to play test this because I'm not even sure Sims are going to be able to get around super well, and obviously I got to make sure that that's possible. But yeah, we wanted this place to feel really, really cluttered. In the movie, she has wood pieces hanging from the ceiling. She's got ropes. She's got all sorts of stuff. And although I would love to be able to do stuff like that, if you think about it from like a game perspective, it is a little bit jarring to hang tons of stuff all over the ceiling, because then you essentially can't see down into the home when you're playing. So I do tend to add some of those things, and really we don't have a ton of them for me to add anyway. It's not like we had exactly what they were showing in the movie, but I try to relax on that kind of stuff because it impedes vision, essentially, when you are actually on the lot trying to play with it, and it can get a little bit annoying. That's why sometimes, too, I won't even put, like, beams and bars and things like that over the top of the lot so that you have that, like, faux wood beam running across the lot. I won't even do that occasionally because it's a little bit too much when you're trying to play. I tried to clutter like items together in a way that you would sort of think that a store would be organized, where they have sections, but from the movie it did seem like it was a little bit sporadic, so I wasn't too worried about having a random assortment of stuff, or maybe some things that sort of don't match one another, or things that you can't even really tell what they are, but they're sort of here, like some of the Star Wars items and things that we have. It's unfortunate that a lot of the things in the catalog, especially when I'm doing something specific like this, everything feels so neat and nice and clean, and I just wish we had more items that were broken and damaged and dirty and cracked For a lot like this where maybe things are more handmade, so you want them to not be so polished and feel like they came from a factory. Like some of the wood pieces that we have to hang on the wall, we have some carved hearts, and we have the one from Eco Lifestyle that I have hung that is like leaves, and they're really nice, but they're so clearly like polished, like something you might even find at IKEA, almost a little bit too modern for a build like this. So when I did use them, I tend to hide them behind other things, like I've sort of hidden it on the wall behind all of the little equipment pieces and things. And in order to make this entire shop feel really closed in, I wanted everything to kind of be sporadic. So I wanted to play a little bit with platforming. I wanted to add some random stairs and some random platform bits and have things be very leveled and layered, and we'll have half walls and we'll have columns to just really close the space in and not make it too open concept, so we have more of that feel of what you get in the movie. Something really interesting that I found while doing this is that the debug wood pieces these are essentially the items that your Sims will create when they use the woodworking table. You can find them in debug, and the way that they show up in the catalog, when you place them in game, they can change to another object. So I had to do a lot of replacing the item over and over again until it turned into the version of the wood piece that I actually wanted, or just a different one when I was looking for different types of wood to clutter the shelves and things like that. I would pull out like the cat piece and it would keep changing over and over again to the bird when I really did want something else. So I had to do that quite a bit. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the other really big struggle I feel was just trying to find empty cabinets that I could sort of bulk together in a way that felt really natural. I wanted a lot of cabinetry and almost like in the wall sort of cabinets that made the spaces feel more closed off. Now, of course, something that is required with the marketplace is these market stalls, which is where your Sims will actually be able to come and sell items. These are tricky because if you are a playing character, if you say you want to come here and you want to sell something, you can use the market stall to do so, and then you can obviously stock your market stall with whatever you want to. But if you go here as a Sim that is just trying to go to the marketplace to see what is for sale, the game will randomly generate characters to run those stalls, which of course is already an issue that I'm trying to fix because I'd very much like to be able to pick the characters that show up at things like this. In a perfect world for my save file, I would be able to pick every character that goes to any location. I would be able to pick like this character and this character only can be a bartender at this bar and be able to set it so it never is different, it never changes, you get exactly what I wanted you to be able to get at that location. It's never going to happen to that level, unfortunately, but not only can you not pick who actually runs these stalls, you can't pick what they're selling. So they'll go through an array of things that come with the different market stalls. You'll find flowers, candles, different things, but if you were playing it as somebody that wanted to come and sell at the marketplace, you could stock the table with wood bits. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not promising that you're going to come here and be able to buy anything that is made of wood necessarily, unless the game sort of auto-generates it that way. I'm not aware of it being able to do that, or if that is like a sellable object that the game will cycle through. I'm not really sure. This is all just like game mechanics nonsense that I have to think about when I'm creating a save file. But it does require at least, I think, 3 of the marketplace stalls on the lot, and I will say right off the bat, some of them are not going to be accessible or working. I knew that from the way that I was placing them. I've placed more than 3 here so that you still have, of course, your like 3 required. In fact, there's actually one outside so that we have one that is completely usable, and I know that for a fact. And I will have to test the lot a little bit just to see what happens. I did want the one that is in the back room, kind of behind the door, to be usable and accessible. But the one when you first walk into the right, I knew that that was not going to work. That was sort of like an intentional thing that I did. It was more to mimic what I was actually seeing in the movie. And then no matter which version of this lot, there is a working bathroom. So if you're in the middle of the woods, you're out here in the back of Henford on Bagley, where we have Snow White's cottage already, and Rapunzel's tower, and some of the other castles that are going to be going back in this hilly section of Henford-on-Bagley, you're in the woods, you know you can come here and at least use a restroom. There's always a bathroom on this lot, no matter which version you end up voting for. I would say the other main section that really gets shown in this version of the store is the area where she's actually doing the wood carving, and you can see in the background that she has this like giant bear carving that she's working on, which I was so lucky to find we had some kind of a version of from Outdoor Retreat of all packs. And so for that reason, obviously, we wanted to make sure that we put a woodworking table back here as well and make sure that that one is totally functional. Again, there are a couple of woodworking tables on this lot, and some of them I have purposefully placed as more decor than anything, but I made sure that we had a couple that worked for sure. I was having a little bit of a lighting issue in here. I'm not really sure what was going on, but everything felt so dark, which is kind of in line with what you actually see in the movie, so I wasn't too worried about it. But from a gameplay standpoint, again, it's one of those things where it's a little bit annoying to play in a space that's too darkly lit, so I felt like we could get away with maybe just adding a little bit more warm light in here. So you'll see that there is quite a bit of like sporadic lanterns sort of hanging around. And then something else that I noticed from the movie is there's tons of sporadically placed random candles all over the place. So I really started to add those in the end, especially with the version that's going to be coming out in part 2, which is her actual home. She just had candles lined absolutely everywhere, which really works for a witch's space, obviously. So that kind of works itself out. But for here, I just felt like it was really dark in here, so I did add quite a bit of warm lighting with like candles and lanterns and things kind of around. And then like I mentioned earlier, with a lot of those like broken wood pieces, random pieces of wood and chunks and stuff kind of on the floor, really messy. She clearly doesn't tidy up after she has done a wood piece and sort of have that kind of like laying all over the place. I found that these laundry day end tables with all these little drawers were one of the only things that I was able to sort of layer in this way that made them really feel like they were more built into the wall, and they had the same sort of color scheming and the older style appeal that I was going for in this space. So I've used those quite a bit throughout this area and in the other little area where we have the giant bear statue. And then moving on to the second part of today's build, we have the Makerspace version of this lot, which again is using the same exterior, but it's got less lighting on the exterior. I did take away the lanterns and things. I wanted it to feel a little bit more abandoned, not as welcoming, not as well lit on the exterior when you first arrive on the lot. And then the interior, I've clearly removed all of the original walls and shelves and all of those things, and I wanted it to feel like a very abandoned, broken, minimal furniture. There's really nothing in here except for what is essential. So obviously for a community lot, one of the things that's essential for every single lot is the board that your Sims can go up to and vote on. And I also wanted to point out that I am using some very special items that I have used in the past when I am doing a community space in my save file, and that is Sadie Sims' version of the community board that she has covered in debug items. It is available on the gallery. That's kind of why I wanted to keep that footage in, so I could show you guys that I was taking it from her gallery, and she's given me permission to do so, by the way, which is really, really great. She creates a lot of really nice different versions of items that are required for lots. So for a makerspace, you have to have the recycler, I think it is, and there's another one that I've used in here. But those items originally look super modern. They come in like bright reds and yellows and blues. They don't fit into the sort of older medieval vibes that we've got going on for this space. So it would really, really throw it off if you came in here and there was like this super modern technology. It just doesn't make sense for the build. So she's created some really nice versions that just feel a little bit more old and ancient, and they're fully functional. They work so nice. I'm absolutely in love with them. She created the community board that I've used in this version of the lot, as well as the recycler, and she also has a candle making station that is similar, and I believe that other one on the far right is a fabricator, possibly. I will leave her channel linked in my description box down below. She is somebody that I just absolutely recommend across the board. Everything that she makes is so, so cool. Has Disney stuff too if you are looking, and I will be using more of her stuff off of the gallery for the save file in the future, so I always like to make sure I give her a shout out for all of that. So if you want any of that, it's available already on the gallery, but if you do download this version of the lot, it will be available in this as well. And as you can see, I tried to keep it really bare in here, put some cracks in the floor and on the walls. We've got some cobwebs and things going on. We've got candles on the floor sort of lighting it, but not much else. I kind of took all of the lanterns off of the wall. And then I wanted to add some cracked walls where the old ones used to be, and then some cracked stairs where the old stairs used to be, and then just put some little wood pieces around so you can see like the end of what it used to be and the version that it is now. So this is like the abandoned version that Merida actually finds in the movie. Obviously transformed into something that is more useful and something that makes sense for what we need for this space to be, because it has to be a makerspace, so it does have to have some things in it. It can't be completely abandoned. And in a way, I don't think it would be super helpful to make a lot that's like an abandoned lot in The Sims. It's not going to be super useful or playable or have anything interesting about it that you would actually want to go there for. But in this version, you would want to go here to be able to use these items. Even if you think about it more from like a gameplay standpoint, it's more in the woods, you sort of stumble upon the space, and it has some really old ancient stuff, ancient furniture, and old things that you can use to your benefit. And obviously Sims are going to want that in this version for the makerspace. But if you want something a little bit more lively and you want something more that has like more to offer, you can always use the makerspace version of Belle's Village, which is also located in this world, which is why it is a good idea to maybe have like a different version. And that is going to be pretty much it today. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's speed build. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments section down below. Stay tuned for part 2 of this lot, where we do the community garden and the regular community space coming out later this week. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post. And I will talk to you all in the next one.